Intro. There are moments in a man's life when silence speaks louder than words. When her absence echoes louder than her presence ever did. You check your phone. Not because you expect her message, but because your heart refuses to let go of the hope that maybe, just maybe, she'll call. This isn't about obsession. It's about the human condition. The longing to be seen, understood, and remembered. Cornel West once said, "To love is to learn to let the other be, to honor their mystery, to care for them without possession." And that's the painful truth we all have to face. Sometimes, the person you think about every day doesn't think of you at all. But that doesn't mean you've lost. It means life is teaching you something profound about love, detachment, and your own strength. This is not just a story of heartbreak. It's a lesson in soul maturity. So today, let's dive into the truth Cornel West would want every man to know. That real love isn't about constant communication or validation. It's about growing, even when someone stops calling. Because sometimes silence is not rejection, it's redirection. And your healing, your dignity, and your evolution are waiting on the other side of that unanswered phone. The weight of unspoken words. Cornel West reminds us that love is not a transaction, it's a transformation. But when she stops calling, your mind becomes a battlefield. You replay every conversation, analyze every emoji, reread old messages, searching for meaning in the spaces between her words. You wonder, what changed? Did I do something wrong? Was I not enough? But here's what West would say. You cannot reduce love to a scorecard of who texted who first or who walked away. You must confront the truth, that your value was never tied to her attention, that your worth was never meant to be measured in notifications or calls. This silence you feel, it's a mirror. It reflects not her absence, but your attachment, your desire to hold on to an image of her that maybe never truly existed. And in that realization lies your freedom. Cornel West speaks of deep democracy, but in relationships we need deep honesty with ourselves. You can't keep pretending that the ache in your chest is love when it's really fear. Fear of letting go, fear of being alone, fear of accepting that she might not be meant for you. But understand this. When a woman pulls away, it doesn't always mean she doesn't care. Sometimes it means she's struggling in silence too, and other times it simply means she's on a different journey, one that doesn't include you right now, and that's okay. Because your story isn't defined by who leaves, it's defined by who you become after they do. Cornel West teaches that love must be courageous. Courageous enough to face heartbreak without bitterness, to face silence without resentment, to face yourself without shame. So let her silence be your teacher. Let it show you how to love yourself in her absence. Let it remind you that peace is not found in her reply. It's found in your ability to still be whole even when she's gone. The philosophy of letting go in the philosophy of Cornel West. Love is not about possession, it's about purpose. He says, you can't lead the people if you don't love the people, and you can't save the people if you don't serve the people. Apply that to your own heart. You can't truly love another person if you haven't learned how to serve your own soul. When she stops calling, you start chasing closure. But closure is not something she gives you. It's something you create within yourself. Every unanswered text, every late-night memory, every moment of overthinking, these are your invitations to grow. Cornel West would say that heartbreak is a kind of spiritual boot camp. It strips away your ego, your illusions, and forces you to look inward, to ask, what am I really seeking? Her love or my own peace? When you can sit in silence and not feel empty, when you can think of her and not feel pain, when you can see her name and no longer flinch, that's when you've begun to heal. But the process is uncomfortable, because healing doesn't start with forgetting her. It starts with remembering yourself. It starts with admitting that sometimes you cared more about being loved than being understood. That sometimes your love was more about filling a void than sharing a truth. And that's the lesson most men miss. You don't lose her when she stops calling. You lose yourself when you stop growing. Cornel West says, "Never forget that justice is what love looks like in public. So be just with yourself. Don't punish your heart for caring. Don't curse yourself for missing her. Use that longing as fuel to become wiser, stronger, more aware. Because love is not about always getting a response. Sometimes love's greatest lesson is teaching you that you can survive without one." Transforming heartbreak into higher consciousness. Cornel West has often said that you can't lead a rich life without wrestling with despair. What he meant wasn't just about politics or philosophy. He was talking about the soul. Because despair doesn't come from failure. It comes from the loss of meaning. And when a woman who once made you feel alive stops calling, it's easy to believe that meaning has left your life too. But heartbreak isn't the end of meaning. It's the beginning of awakening. You see, most men run from heartbreak. They distract themselves with noise, new people, parties, endless scrolling, false bravado. But Cornel West teaches that true power comes from leaning into the pain, not escaping it. When you sit alone with that silence, when the night feels heavy and her name still echoes in your mind, that's when the real battle begins. Because that's when the truth surfaces. You weren't just missing her voice. You were missing your own clarity. When someone's absence hurts you deeply, it's because they mirrored a part of you that you haven't yet healed. Her silence exposed your loneliness. Her distance revealed your dependency. Her indifference showed you where you still cling to external validation. Cornel West's philosophy reminds us that every wound can become a window, if you have the courage to look through it. So don't curse the heartbreak, study it. Ask yourself, what is this silence trying to teach me about me? Maybe it's teaching you patience. Maybe it's showing you that your peace shouldn't depend on another person's attention. Maybe it's pushing you toward spiritual independence, the kind of wholeness no rejection can take away. In heartbreak, you discover the sacred art of surrender. You stop chasing closure and start embracing understanding. You realize that love, when pure, doesn't need to be returned, because its value lies in the giving, not the receiving. Cornel West once said, "We are who we are because somebody loved us." Even if she no longer does, that love once awakened something beautiful in you. That doesn't vanish, it transforms. It becomes wisdom. It becomes compassion. It becomes strength. And that's the paradox of pain. The very thing that broke you becomes the thing that builds you. You just have to let it. The power of dignified distance. Now let's talk about dignity. Something Cornel West considers one of the highest virtues of human character. He often says, never confuse visibility with significance. In relationships, this means just because she's no longer in your life doesn't mean you've lost your value. Sometimes, walking away isn't weakness, it's wisdom. You have to know when to hold on out of love, and when to let go out of self-respect. When she never calls, your instinct might be to chase, to prove your worth, to remind her what she's missing. But West's philosophy teaches restraint, not out of ego but out of emotional maturity. Because love without dignity turns into dependency, and dependency is not love. It's fear in disguise. Dignified distance means you can still wish her well, but you no longer beg for her attention. It means you can still remember the good times, but you stop reliving them like a loop you can't escape. Cornel West reminds us that to love is to serve, not to suffocate. If your love becomes a cage for her freedom or for your own peace, then it's no longer love. It's attachment. So you must choose dignity. not as an act of pride but as an act of self-preservation. Because when you choose dignity, you choose clarity over confusion, peace over pity, self-worth over self-doubt. And something amazing happens when you do. The power dynamic shifts. Not because you win, but because you no longer need to. You move from being a seeker of validation to a guardian of inner peace. Cornel West calls this the soulful freedom, the ability to stand tall in truth even when your heart aches. It's when you stop asking, why did she stop calling? And start asking, what is this moment calling me to become? When you live with that kind of awareness, silence no longer scares you. It becomes sacred. You realize that the same quiet that once hurt you is now healing you. Because dignity doesn't scream. It glows, and that glow is your new power. Rebuilding the inner kingdom. Cornel West speaks often about soulcraft. The idea that our greatest task is not to build wealth or status, but to build the soul. And when someone you care about leaves, that's the moment when soulcraft begins. You start by rebuilding your inner kingdom, piece by piece, thought by thought. You stop seeking her reflection and start seeking your direction. You stop asking, what's wrong with me? And start declaring what's right within me. Rebuilding the inner kingdom means recentering your purpose. You begin to remember that your worth doesn't come from being loved. It comes from being alive. Every morning you wake up, you are given a chance to start again. Not as someone she left, but as someone life is shaping. Cornel West says, the condition of truth is to allow suffering to speak. So let your suffering speak, but let it speak wisdom, not bitterness. Use your pain as your preacher. Let it teach you the difference between needing love and nurturing it, because love that matures doesn't beg to be seen. It simply radiates. And when you rebuild your inner kingdom, you attract peace instead of chasing people. You attract authenticity instead of attention. You attract a partner who calls not because she's obligated, but because she's aligned. This is how heartbreak becomes holy. It cleanses the heart of illusions and opens it to reality. And in that reality, you learn that real strength is not in holding on, but in letting go with grace. Cornel West reminds us, we are finite beings with infinite worth. So even when someone leaves, your worth remains untouched. It's not diminished, it's distilled. It becomes purer, deeper, more grounded. When you rebuild yourself this way, her silence no longer feels like punishment. It feels like permission. Permission to rise. Permission to evolve. Permission to love again. But this time from wholeness, not from wounds. And that's what the truth teaches us. The pain that once broke you is the same pain that births the version of you you were always meant to become. Loving again without losing yourself. Cornel West once said, to be human, you must be in love. To love deeply is to be wounded deeply, but to love wisely is to grow deeply. And that's the stage you reach when you finally heal. When you can look back on what hurt you and see not tragedy, but transformation. When you start to love again, you must not return as the man who was waiting by the phone, chained to unanswered messages. You must return as the man who has learned that love is a gift, not a guarantee. Cornel West teaches that love is not sentimentality. It is steadfast commitment to truth. So when you love again, do not love out of fear of loneliness. Do not love to fill a silence. Love because you've learned that your heart has something worth giving, something that adds light, not need. You see, the danger after heartbreak is to close your heart completely. To say, I'll never love again. But West warns us that cynicism is the death of the soul. The goal is not to harden, but to refine. Not to stop feeling, but to start feeling better. When you love again, you do it from awareness, not attachment. You no longer chase someone who doesn't call because you've learned that love is not about chasing. It's about connecting. It's about energy flowing both ways. It's about presence, not pretense. Cornel West would say that true love has moral depth. It respects both freedom and responsibility. That means you can love someone fully, while still being okay if they walk away. Because love without control is peace, love without obsession is power, and love without expectation is freedom. To love again wisely, you must first understand what love is not. It's not attention. It's not constant validation. It's not someone's response to your worth. Love is truth shared between two souls who are already whole, not two halves trying to complete each other. So when she doesn't call, you don't crumble anymore. You simply smile, knowing that whoever is meant for you will call. And not because you reminded her, but because she remembers you. That is what emotional maturity looks like. That's what Cornel West's wisdom helps you become. Not a man who avoids pain, but a man who transforms it into power. The grace of letting be. In one of his lectures, Cornel West said, "Never forget that the condition of truth is to allow suffering to speak." But he also said something else, quietly but profoundly. Love is what justice looks like in private. That means when you finally heal, your heart doesn't seek revenge or resentment. It seeks release. You learn that letting go is not weakness. It's mercy. Not mercy for her, mercy for yourself. Because holding on to someone who has already left in spirit only keeps you stuck in yesterday's story. Letting be, not forcing, not begging, not pretending, is the highest form of acceptance. It's when you finally realize that not every woman who touches your soul is meant to stay. Some were only meant to awaken you, to prepare you, to polish you for the love that truly aligns with your destiny. Cornel West's vision of love is not fairy tale romance. It's spiritual realism. It says, life will break your heart, but your job is to stay tender. Because bitterness blocks blessings, and resentment poisons growth. So when she's always on your mind but never calls, stop asking why she didn't come back. Start asking why you keep waiting. Because your waiting doesn't change her silence. It only delays your evolution. West reminds us that love, like truth, requires courage. Courage to face loneliness, courage to remain kind, courage to start again, wiser and softer at the same time. And one day, when you've embraced that philosophy, you'll meet someone new, not as a wounded man seeking comfort, but as a whole soul sharing peace. You'll no longer text out of desperation, but out of joy. You'll no longer fear being forgotten because you'll finally understand. The right person could never forget what's real. That is the grace of letting be. Loving without clinging. Remembering without aching, moving forward without fear. The truth hurts, but it heals now. Let's return to the title. When a woman is always on your mind but never calls, the truth hurts. Yes, it hurts. It hurts to care more than she does. It hurts to wait for a call that never comes. It hurts to replay memories of laughter and connection, only to realize she's already moved on. But the truth, the one Cornel West would whisper into your heart, is that pain is not punishment. It's preparation. Every heartbreak purifies your capacity to love. Every silence strengthens your relationship with yourself. Every unanswered call teaches you patience, humility, and inner balance. The truth hurts, but it's not meant to break you. It's meant to build you. Because when you stop waiting for her to call, you start listening to the voice that never stopped speaking. Your own. The voice that says, I am enough. The voice that says, I can love again. The voice that says, I don't need to be remembered to have mattered. Cornel West believes that the measure of our humanity is how we handle heartbreak, with grace, with dignity, with love still intact. So don't let the silence make you bitter. Let it make you wise. Don't let her absence make you empty. Let it make you whole. Because someday when you're no longer haunted by her memory, when her name no longer stings, when you've turned your pain into peace, you'll understand that love didn't abandon you. It evolved you, and that's when you'll smile, maybe in the quiet of a late night, and whisper to yourself, "The truth hurts, but it healed me."